Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the Bleav Network. And joining me to talk Rockets Summer League is one of our favorites, Frank with Rockets Chop Shop. And can you believe, Frank, we're 5 weeks away from the first preseason game?
It's been a long summer. So I'm just trying to ignore the time in between so we can just get there. But I am definitely excited to get back to basketball. You know, this is the Christmas time for sports fans. You got college football starting, NFL starting, basketball's coming along, baseball playoffs in a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and everybody, by the way, should watch your detailed thoughts on the Rockets schedule on the Chop Shop. And I know you're concerned about the 16 back-to-backs, which I agree sounds daunting, but I also believe this team is better equipped, Frank, to handle back-to-backs than much of the NBA. Number one, because they've got more than 5 guys who deserve 30 minutes a night when you look at, all these young guys vying for playing time. But number two, and maybe more importantly, they're very deep from 10 to 15. For example, Landale as a rotation player, not exciting, but as Steven Adams depth, it's great. Last year, it was too much Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, and Jayshawn Tate for 30 minutes a night. But this year, Frank, they're probably just subbing in for 15 minutes on emergency nights like on back-to-backs.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. I agree in theory. I think what is left to be seen is what kind of concerns me, because a lot of our guys are still very young. And as you know, from last season, we struggled on the road. And a lot of those back-to-backs are road games against playoff caliber teams with a known superstar. Honestly, just for the team overall, I think the depth has to be a strength. It has to be. If we want to be successful, we have no choice but to lean into that. And that's, when people talk about, how are they going to play all these guys? They're going to need to, especially for a young team. That really is the hallmark for young teams. You have to be able to have 2 5-man lineups that are almost similar in the production that they give you, if not damn near the same. So, yeah, I agree. I think the depth and the number of players and bodies we can throw out on a night in, night out basis is actually going to be a strength for the Rockets.
The other part that I would argue is how can they be less prepared than they were last season to play with Udoka and what he was going to do? There's no transition. Some of these teams, they're changing head coaches. They're changing players. They're moving guys in and out. There's a lot of continuity, and continuity matters in sports. We see it over and over again.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's a big strength. I think from year 1 to year 2, especially, you see a lot of big leaps from whatever sport it is. Whenever a coach installs their identity and try to build the culture that they want to see in their teams, the first year is really kind of that laying the foundation. And the second year is where you see where it kind of takes hold. So, you look at what the Rockets were able to do in the first year, going 500 on the season. And in context of coming out of what we came out of, trying to pivot from tanking, I think is a lot harder than people understand. Historically, teams that go through the run we do end up not winning at a high level unless they look out and get like a LeBron James or one of these all-world type of talents. That's still yet to be seen for the Rockets, but I'm curious to see if Udoka's culture building and his focus on doing things the right way can be maybe we're not contending for a championship anytime soon, but we can get back to a winning program that really believes in culture and trying to get things done. So yeah, I think year 2, and it's going to lead into what we're going to talk about in a little bit. I do expect a lot of our players to be able to really let their talent shine and not really focus on trying to just play the right way. It should be something they're used to by now.
Just the last thing that I had on the schedule was when it was announced. I mean, I know Rockets fans saw, 11 national television games. That's so much more national television exposure. I guess it sounds good, but let's be honest, Frank. 8 of those are on NBA TV. And I'm going to insist that NBA TV is not a national telecast. From what I read, only about 4.3% of American homes get NBA TV. I'm not one of those homes. It's kind of more like League Pass.
It's League Pass Advance. It's basically, I think those games are going to expose the Rockets play to hardcore NBA fans from other fan bases more than a regular League Pass game or a game that's going to be on our Space City network. So it is quote unquote national, but it's national to a very subset of hardcore fans. Obviously, the ESPN, ABC games, those games are nationally broadcast where you have more casual fans being able to see. Those are the games that you really want to see, especially from a branding standpoint and changing narratives nationwide. Those ABC, ESPN games are the ones that catch the morning talk the day after. So as far as like the NBA TV game, I think there is some value to it in the sense of the NBA community is fans that are really diehard, but it is better than having none, right? And we've I think in the past three or four seasons before that, probably on one hand, you can count the amount of national exposure the Rockets have had. This is a step in the right direction. We are kind of in the lower middle class of what the NBA is trying to advertise, which, I think it's an improvement. And if we win and we keep developing our players, and then, maybe in a few years, we'll be back to where we were. But, Robert, in the NBA, it's star appeal, right? And if you don't have the star players, the people that sell the tickets, ESPN is not going to throw you on there. Luckily for us, because of the rebuild and the young players we have some storylines that they're going to be interested in, whether it's the Wemby thing, the Chets. So that's going to be something we got going. But at some point, you got to deliver a star for you to get on that big stage on a consistent basis.
I'm just not somebody that cares much if they're on national television or not. I guess it matters because does that mean they're good or not good? But we see all the time teams surprised they're not on national television a lot. All of a sudden they do something. Witness the Texans last year and what they did. Do you care? I just don't care. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's important, bro. I think it's important for the market because you remember, basketball, there's an on-court value. The off-court stuff matters. It matters for players. I think when you're talking about free agency, guys want to be on the big stage, right? Guys want to, whether it's in the playoffs or even playing on ESPN. And a lot of these players are brands in their own. And, if I'm an agent and I have a player that I can go to two teams, and if they're similar, but one of them has a lot of exposure, aka the Lakers, the Miamis. This is why they win the free agency battles with a lot of these players' the exposure. So I think for the Rockets, that is a selling point for Rafael Stone to say that you're in a big market, you're going to play in front of the eyes of the national audience. People are going to know your name across the country. So it may be trivial when it comes to like X and O's, an actual product of winning or losing. But from a marketing standpoint and just brand building, which to me is important in today's in any sport, I think it does matter. It really does.
It used to be exciting for me just because, you get to see what the national guys say when they're on a national game and stuff like that. But now, it's just like there's all these podcasts. You hear guys talking about teams all the time. And really the guys that are calling the national games, I just don't care as much about what they think because I don't know if they really follow us.
You're speaking the gospel right now. I think the national media, the voice of national media have been oversaturated. Too many opinions, not enough experts. Back in the day, I'm going to sound like an old head. It was a few national guys, and when your team played, you cared about what they said, whether they followed you or not. But everybody has an opinion now. There's all these people that are becoming shock jocks that just want to give a hot take to catch the next viral clip or whatever. And it's kind of diluted good basketball analysis. So I'm with you. I really don't care as much as what anybody on the national level say, because most of the time it's not accurate. If you're watching this right now, I think the local podcast, the Houston podcast, whether it's here, whether it's the Chop Shop, whether it's Locked On Rockets, do yourself a good service and listen to us. Not saying that we're better than anybody or anything like that, but we're talking about the Rockets in the start of September, and we follow them through summer league and the draft, and we know about the 15th guy on the roster, and so we take our time to really find out about the team. So I think nationally that's changing. I'm really off the national thing because it's just they really don't have any insight on the team more than a local beat writer or somebody that follows the team closely.
The guys that I trust to know about the Rockets, Las Vegas, and their over under for the Rockets is 42.5. Now they got it wrong last year. They underestimated the Rockets, and part of that might be, hey, they're not the national team, they're not the following team or whatever, but they tend to know what they're talking about. Vegas does. And they're basically daring us to get 2 more wins. That's it. 2 more wins. So how do you feel, Frank? Because I say they lost nearly 140 games from Tari, Şengün, Amen, and Cam last year because of injuries and various other issues that they had. They have 6 rotation players who are likely all better than they were last year. They had the 3rd pick in the draft and Steven Adams, a really good rotation player. Udoka's 2nd season means, like I said, continuity, less of a learning curve. Am I being a homer to want to smash the over?
No, I don't think so. And I wouldn't fault Vegas for putting us right where they put us, because essentially there's 2 factors there. There's the internal development of the Rockets, which you just eloquently laid out. The other factor is the external stuff, the rest of the league. And I think this is where you kind of factor in the improvement that you're going to see in the West. I personally think the West is going to be much more competitive this year. And I think teams are going to be that were dead to rights last year. Some of them are going to be revived, right? I'm talking about your Memphis Grizzlies. I'm talking about your San Antonio Spurs. Not saying these type of teams or even the New Orleans Pelicans, not saying they're going to be like top 4 seeds, but the fact that they're going to be more competitive, and that just means that those games are going to be that much more competitive for the Rockets, means that those wins are going to be slightly harder to come across. Just by looking at the West, I see only 2 teams that I can know for sure are probably going to be the bottom feeders, which are going to be Portland and Utah. Everybody else, they have a chance to make the playoffs. They have a chance to make the playoffs. Spurs, they're going to try to make the playoffs. The Kings are going to try to make the playoffs. Golden State, as much as you can laugh at their roster, they still have one of the greatest players on their roster. And anytime I see a all-time top 75 player on a roster, they have a chance. The Lakers, they're going to have something to say. They have 2 of the best players in the world on their team. You just go down the West, Memphis, OKC, Minnesota has one of the best young guards in the league. Dallas went to the finals. It's going to be a bloodbath. And I think sneakily, the Suns are probably going to be back where people expected them to be. Those superstar teams usually take a little bit to gel. They have structural issues, but I think the second year, as you point out, continuity, they're going to be better. So when I think about what the Vegas is saying about the Rockets, I actually take it as a compliment. Just the fact that we won 42 games or 41 games, which is right at 500, to assume that we can be slightly better in a better context of the West. I think you factor in all the internal development. I would go on the over, but I think it's appropriate to see that. And I think there's a world where the Rockets are actually a much better team than they were last year, a much improved team, and still have relatively probably 3 or 4 more wins than they actually did. I think that world exists.
I'd like to know what the audience thinks. Just a quick reminder, we want to hear from you. So share your thoughts in the YouTube comments about where you think the Rockets are going to be or anything else that we've talked about, and click the like button to support the show. If you haven't done so already, subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. All right, Frank, let's play this game because you started running through some teams. I'm going to put your feet to the fire on this. Can the Rockets jump this team in the standings? That's the game we're going to play. Can they jump Gimpy, Kawhi, and the Paul George-less Clippers?
Yes. I think that is a team, not by talent, but based on health and availability of their best players. I think that just by being a young team with some guys that could run and go and hopefully, everybody stays healthy, I think we should be able to win more games down the stretch than the Clippers. So I'm going to say yes on the Clippers.
Can they jump the Lakers? Do we love LeBron and AD to stay healthy 2 years in a row?
See, that's going to be, I think the Lakers, they finished with 46 wins, I think, last year. I personally believe that's around where we're going to end up. So yes, we can jump them. I personally think that's one of the teams we're going to be fighting for those kind of between 6 through 8 or 9 in the West. I think that's where the Lakers are going to be in that jumble of teams. So, but yes, I think that's a team that we do have a chance to clear.
Yeah, I would just ask this. If you're not getting better, aren't you getting worse in the West? And what did they do to get better?
Well, the JJ Redick signing is yet to be seen. I do believe in coaching as a factor. Having a competent coach, not saying Darvin Ham was incompetent, but some of the decision-making and just the play designs and how they use players was a bit suspect. I think that's something to look at. And also, I never can count LeBron out. I don't really need to see much. I just know that there's a baseline of they're probably going to be in the playoff hunt. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for that.
Can they jump Golden State, who added depth, but Clay's gone? Steph is going to miss some games. As always, Draymond will get suspended because that's like the sun coming up. So what do you feel about that?
I think Golden State and the Lakers are in the same boat. They're really heavily leaning on their best players. I do think they have sneakily good players. I love Pods on that team. I think he's going to be great for them. I want to see what Kuminga looks like this year with a little more autonomy. Obviously, Draymond Green, for all his warts and all the annoyance and all the stuff that we all hate about him, he is still one of the best defenders and basketball minds in the game. And I think when him and Steph are both healthy, the Warriors are a formidable opponent for anybody. Yes, we can jump them, but once again, 6 through 9 or 10, they're going to be in that mix, trying to fight for those spots.
I'll also be very interested to see who's more anxious to give a big ol' extension to their draft pick 4 years ago. Yeah. Is it Kuminga or Jalen Green by the end of the year?
Ooh, that'd be a great subplot. Yep.
Can they jump a Pelicans team who still does not have a starting center as we sit here 1 month away from training camp?
Yes, I think the Rockets this year should be better than the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are a good team. Obviously, when they're fully healthy with Zion, They have some very good young players, Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III. And, just a good team. Adding Murray from Atlanta over there, it's going to really help their perimeter defense at the guard, which is something they struggled on. But I think the Rockets, honestly, are just more talented overall than they are, and we have more depth in them. These are the type of teams that we need to kind of clear to take that next step. I would say last year, with all the stuff going on, you pointed out the injuries that we had. I think the West is harder, but I think it's harder for the Pelicans as well. So I think that we've played them pretty well. And honestly, the biggest problem we've had with them is Valanciunas, and he's gone. So I'm actually okay with them. Us, I think we're going to be better than the Pels this year. I think if we're not, then it's a disappointing year for us.
Have you made a prediction yet? Do you feel like they're going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Where do you think the Rockets land?
I think 6 through 10. And I'm saying that because I just feel like there's going to be a bunch of teams in that between the 6th seed and like the 9th, 10th seed that are going to have similar records. And it's going to come down the stretch, down the season, who can kind of separate themselves from each other. And I think that just based on how close the West is going to be, the difference between the 5th or 6th seed is not going to be that far removed from like the 8th or 9th seed. It's just on a night-to-night basis. The NBA is so loaded right now with talent that any night you're facing one of these guys that could drop, 40 points on you. And it's just, that's where the league is. And for the Rockets, what they have to do to be able to show that, they can kind of make themselves a little different than the rest of the field is lean into their strengths. And I think from what we saw last year is going to be playing really hard defense and running in transition. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really close race down the middle. So I'm hoping personally that we are like a 7th or 6th seed, 6th or 7th seed this year.
Which Rocket makes the biggest improvement this year? And I'm glad you're answering this because I don't want to answer this question. It's too hard.
It's a setup. Okay, so improvement, you have to think about starting point, right? You look at some of our players that have already been here that we've seen progress from year to year. Obviously, you think about Jalen Green and Şengün, and they've reached a level that I think is pretty good. Obviously Şengün being to me the highest of that young guy that's reached a certain level. He's borderline all-star. So as far as improvement, I don't see, because to me, if he made a major improvement, it would be like going to like a superstar level. I think his is going to be a little more progressive. Same thing with Jalen. I think Jalen's going to have a leap, but it's not going to be into some superstar. The person that I personally think that is going to have the biggest leap is, to me, the person that had the biggest leap last year. And that's Jabari Smith Jr. If we can go back to his rookie year, Jabari was literally, objectively, one of the worst players in the NBA for a majority of his rookie year by every metric. And he was struggling, shooting, struggling with self-creation, struggling dribbling, struggling on defense. And to me, the leap he made from year 1 to year 2 quietly was one of the biggest jumps from a player being below average to being a average to a plus starter on a team as a second-year player. I think my philosophy on players like him, or any big man in general, is that the physicality it takes to play the 4 or the 5 in the NBA, it's really hard to gauge the talent of a 4 or a 5 until they start developing that grown man strength, as I like to say. And I think that over the years that he's been here and coming into this year, Jabari's overall body build and strength has continually improves. And some of the issues that he's going to face, that he's faced in the past that have made him look weaker, whether it's him getting bullied in the post, him getting moved off his spot, him not able to generate separation using his body when he is posting up, his lateral strength and ability to kind of just use his size. I think a lot of that is mitigated just by him just getting stronger. Even his shooting, a lot of his shots when he was a rookie were short and flat. And that's a testament to his leg strength. So I'm saying all that to say, I expect Jabari to take a leap. Now, when I say leap, doesn't mean everybody has to be a superstar, right? A leap could be a role player becoming very elite at what they do. As far as a stretch 4 and a big man that can play on the perimeter, I think he takes a leap in that aspect. I think his shooting is going to be more stable. And the biggest issue he's had on defense, honestly, besides his lateral mobility, is his interior defense. I'm looking at some of the videos that have come out this summer. He looked like he's bulked up a little bit. And I think his functional strength is going to keep going as he gets older. He's a baby. I think Jabari, I don't know if he's 21 yet. So I think that is something that I'm going to look at. But overall, I just think that Jabari Smith Jr. is going to be a player that's going to cement himself in this Rockets starting 5. And it's probably going to lock himself as the 4 of the future going forward. So that's my answer. I think Jabari Smith Jr.
Yeah, the only thing I would question on Jabari, as far as your thought process, is he has to make a jump with his shooting. And I just kept looking for, okay, show me a sign that you can bump it up 3 or 4 more% last year. And I just never saw that. And I was surprised that as the season went on, that his shooting didn't continue to go upward. And that strength, that helps. But I don't know how he gets a ton better in 3 or 4 months over an offseason without the shooting taking a jump. And that's the real question mark for me, is the shooting. Whereas Jalen, I think his shooting can get better over the course of a season, because we saw what he did in March. He changed the type of shots he was taking. And so Jalen has the ability to make a bigger jump, because if he's taking the shots that he needs to take instead of contested threes or just, 3-pointers in general, I think that's where he makes the jump that maybe Jabari can't make. Because overall, like Jabari, because usually when Jabari was shooting, he was open.
That's true. But I will say, Jabari's shooting definitely took a huge leap last year. I'm looking at his synergy stats right now. I mean, on
it
spot,
took a leap from the year before, but did it take a leap as the season progressed?
Everybody shooting on the team took a downturn. So we were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. Personally, I think it was due to fatigue, guys playing a lot of minutes, and the style of defense that we played, very ISO heavy, and kind of everybody's shooting tanked towards the year. But Jabari shot 41% on catch and shoot threes, which to me is a great step for him going forward. Most of his shots, they're in the 40s. He's the biggest problem he has right now is shooting off of screens from three, and he just doesn't have enough volume to really make anything out of it. But shooting 41.5% from spot ups is really, to me, that's a huge improvement from the guy that we saw from his rookie year. I think that number keeps going up. His diversity of his offense, I think, needs to be explored a little bit, which is one of the criticism I had for Ime Udoka. Our offense is very one-dimensional, so it's really hard to really gauge what his shooting talent is just overall. But I think the reason I didn't pick Jalen, because I think his leap is just consistency, right? Because he's inconsistent. And if he was just, because we see the highs, even his good games where he's not shooting great, he just makes, like you said, better decisions and things like that. But Jalen's leap is consistency. And so for me, like, that doesn't really count as a leap per se. It's just more maturity. It will translate, I would say, impact wise. If you want to say which player could possibly have the biggest impact, we've talked about this on here and on Spaces. He takes the most shots, or damn near 1 and 2 on a night out basis. The guy that takes the most shots should not be your worst shooter, right? So if he's taking the most shots and he's shooting better, that's going to impact the Rockets winning a lot more than maybe Jabari just being like a consistent 40% shooter. But when I think about leap, I'm thinking about holistically. Like, we know Jalen has some strengths. For all the knock he gets, there are things he does well, and he is, he's a player that has a certain level of athleticism that he brings to the table. Jabari was so bad his rookie year. To see what he did last year, to where he was a positive on the court for a majority of the season, I think, to me, him becoming more of that is going to be huge for him as I look at him coming along. The other guys, Amen, Tari, those guys have been baseline good. Even Cam Whitmore, baseline good. So they could get better, but I just look at where you're coming from. Now, Jalen has an argument, but I just think he just needs to be more consistent.
Speaking of Jabari, Jalen, the starters, can any of the starters lose their job by game one? I'm talking about preseason training camp. And if so, who?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody that could lose it at game one. Maybe game 40. Yeah. Game one, I think that your starting five is going to be Fred, Jalen, Dylan, Jabari, and Şengün. I think Ime is the type of coach that he's going to always, go to guys he trusts. And for the most part of the year, our starting five was one of the better starting fives until about February. But for the most of the season, they were in the top 10 to 15 in net rating with that starting unit. So I expect that to continue onwards. And this is with Jalen Green struggling. So back to your point about him being consistent, if you can get Jalen to be consistently just an average shooting guard and Jabari Smith to be slightly better and keep being a positive with what the other guys produced last year, we should win a lot more games. Now, one player that I will be looking forward to towards the middle and the end of the season to lose their spot is going to be Dylan Brooks, because I feel like there are a lot of alternatives that you could place there in that small forward position for him. The reason is because, I love Dylan. I love the intensity, the culture, all that stuff that he brings to the team. But to me, what slipped off last year, his defense was not that good. And secondly, the shooting is kind of up and down. And so I'm looking at guys like Tari Eason. I'm looking at guys like Amen Thompson, who is not a great shooter. Neither of them are great shooters, but Amen brings so much as a third ball handler on that unit, that third or fourth ball handler, a guy that pushes in transition. To me, already one of the top 5 perimeter defenders in the NBA right now. When he's on the court, the Rockets are just a different team. So I think that if Dillon struggles with his shooting and the defense becomes a problem and it slows the team down, I wouldn't be surprised if Udoka moved to Amen or Tari to get into that starting lineup at some point during the season.
Yeah, I hope that there is a real competition there. One thing I wanted to close with you on is, did you catch Ben Dubose's podcast last week, The Logger Line, on the draft of the best Rockets of all time? Did you see that?
No, I did not. I'm sorry. I did not get to catch. I was busy last week, but what was the discussion about that?
Well, they basically had they had 5 Rockets social media influencers, and that's including Ben, picking their all-time Rockets teams in a draft, and they were picking them based on a particular year. So you just couldn't pick Akeem in general. It had to be a certain year or something of his career. They also drafted a couple of Rockets coaches, 5 head coaches and 5 assistants. And I wanted to start off by talking about that because I didn't catch it if they said the 5 assistants had to specifically be an assistant on a Rocket staff. So I'm going to give a pass on that. Maybe that was part of what it was. But Frank, it drove me nuts that not one of these 5 guys either picked or even brought up in the conversation the name Bill Fitch, a Hall of Famer who won a title with the Celtics, was twice Coach of the Year and took the Rockets to the finals, walloping the Showtime Magic Kareem Lakers without starting point guard John Lucas, who had the drug suspension. Bill Fitch is a name that I don't care if you're a 16-year-old Rocket fan, if you're into this stuff, you know, you if you know what Elvin Hayes stats are on Basketball Reference, you kind of have to know, you know, who Bill Fitch is.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because of just probably because most of the influencers are probably younger. I don't know who was on that panel to really know what they were picking. I'm curious to see who they actually selected for those teams. Now, if it was guys like Rudy and MDA, and I'm sure somebody picked Udoka as that, maybe Van Gundy. To me, those are just proximity selections.
Yeah, it was the coaches. The head coaches were Adelman, D'Antoni, Van Gundy, and I mean, all very good coaches. But Bill Fitch has a championship, and he took a team to the finals that had no business going to the finals in '86. And if you're a Rockets fan, I mean, we've had 4 finals teams. I mean, at least know what happened with those 4 finals teams. And you know, that's my thinking. And look, personally, Jeff, fun guy to watch on television, but I watched him coach the Rockets. It was all right. It wasn't anything spectacular. Yeah. I mean, I know he took a team to the finals when he was coaching the Knicks, but that was on a strike year and they were like the 8th seed. And yeah, getting the 8th seed to the finals is something, but it was kind of one of those weird years. And I love Adelman, but yeah, I mean, Fitch's record is better, frankly.
I personally, aside from Rudy and Mike D'Antoni, I mean, in this era, even, you know, not mentioning Bill, the Rockets coaches haven't been that good. I'm just going to come out and say that. Like, we've had a lot of mediocre teams over the years. And I think, obviously, MDA with the 65-win team, I think he's a fabulous coach. I'm hoping Ime brings us. But a lot of those years, whether it was due to injuries or whatever, the Rockets underperformed based on the talent or perceived talent that we had on the rosters. Yeah, I think most of those people are just going to vote on what they remember and what they've seen. I wasn't old enough to watch Fitch coach or anything like that, but I do know, obviously, he's one of the better coaches in the Rockets' tenure here. But personally, like, I'm not impressed with what Adelman did to any, like, just like he's overall in his career, great coach for the Rockets. He was okay. Same with Van Gundy. Like, I think his Knicks career is what's dragging a lot of his legacy, but on the Rockets, we made some nice playoff games and things like that, but I really wasn't really say that, oh, this is a guy that's going to be like one of our top 5 coaches. That's just my opinion. I think right now it goes from MDA, then I got to jump all the way back to Rudy, and then goes to Bill Fitch. But other than that, it's kind of a toss-up of just average coaches.
Yeah, so I got to say his legacy changes if the referees basically don't fix the Lakers Game 7 game where Sacramento should have probably beat them, gone to the finals, and to beat the Kobe, Shaq Lakers with the guys that he
I'm
had.
talking about just on the Rockets. No disrespect to Adam. Adam and that Sacramento Kings team that he was coaching, some of my favorite teams in the NBA. You know, like they were great. And if you guys ever, the old people that remember those Lakers and Kings series, it's ironically that Kings is similar to what the Rockets were to the Warriors. Whereas you have this all-time great team in your conference that you have to face every year, and you push them, but you never got over the hump. And that's kind of how I view those Kings teams. But, you know, I love those teams with, you know, Bibby and Doug Christie and Peja and Vlade. Just a lot of fun times watching those battles. But yeah, Adam is a great coach.
And I didn't mention it, but obviously they had Rudy as one of their coaches, which is fine. You know, that's great. Obviously,
yeah, that's a given.
Love Rudy. At the end of the video, this video, I should say, you're going to see a link on the screen with the Houston Sports Talk tribute that we did to Bill Fitch when he passed away.
Yeah.
So Rockets beat writer and author Robert Falkoff, who covered Fitch, has some great insight. I'm going to ask you HST fans to tap that if you don't know about Fitch and in what way he was ahead of his time. And there's some stuff that I don't want to get into. I'll let you just go to that video. We talk about, you know, how this guy was not just great back then, but he was kind of ahead of his time. And Frank, in that draft that they did, they also drafted several Rockets. I'm not sure I'd have wanted near my team if I was trying to win. No thanks on Kevin Martin, Coutinho. And I know this is going to hurt your heart, but no thanks on Coutinho. No thanks on Steve Francis or the worst one was Rockets Scottie Pippen. Definitely no thanks on him if I'm trying to win. All of those guys were picked. Somehow Pat Beverly and Jeremy Lin got drafted, but Sam Cassell and Sleepy Floyd did not. And I mean, I'm sorry, but Sam Cassell and Sleepy Floyd, I don't care what the stats look like on those teams. Sam Cassell and Sleepy Floyd are going to get you a lot further to winning than Pat Beverly and Jeremy Lin, whatever.
Well, I'm assuming that it was probably because of some like finite number of players. Then maybe they got, I would draft Steve Francis. I'm biased and I don't care about wins when it comes to Francis. He's just a player that, you know, he's one of my favorite Rockets for what he did for us at that time, coming out of where we were coming out of, giving the city excitement, making us relevant. Back to what we were talking about the national TV stuff. For a younger Frank, when I was watching that, man, that meant everything to me, man. To see our guy winning co-rookie of the year or him at the dunk contest, that stuff matters, Robert. It matters. But when it comes to winning, obviously, you can make some arguments. But yeah, I mean, there's the Rockets teams over the post Dream era. It's kind of a mystery. I hope someday we can really have a critical conversations about it. I think that Morey and Harden really did a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to the legacy of the Houston Rockets. We've had great runs, but in retrospect, we've been a pretty mediocre team. And I hate to say that to Rockets fans, but I'm hoping that this blip in tanking that we just had, which is something that we haven't had to experience in this like modern Rockets basketball to be this bad. We've been above or above average. I'm hoping that with Coach Udoka, that we are brought back to you know, not even the Van Gundy Rockets. We need to be the Mike D'Antoni, Rudy T Rockets again and start building a new kind of culture of championships and contending for big time wins. And honestly, I'm just happy that we are in a new age where our team is out of the kind of the focusing on just James Harden. I love James Harden, what he did for the city and everything. But when I was, you know, there was a point in his tenure in Houston where I lost hope that he would ever be the type of player to win a championship. So I'm just ready for us to just come out and see who the next star for the Houston Rockets is going to be, because this city wants it. We need it. We have stars in baseball. We have stars. CJ Stroud over there on the Texans. We are waiting, Rockets, Houston Rockets. We're waiting for somebody to emerge and for us to be at that level of relevance. So we can write a new chapter and start having new players we can draft 10, 15 years from now in the all-time greats. I'm excited about it and excited about this season.
Yeah, there's guys that they didn't choose, I should say, that might have had something to do with Ben made them pick one guy from the modern era, and that means from 20 to 24. So it's basically like they got a bank on, you know, they're picking it. You know, somebody picked Cam Whitmore in his rookie year, maybe because they had to pick Cam Whitmore because they were trying to pick a guy from this era. So yeah, that part was a little weird. And I was like, wow, don't force. It's no fun if you're forcing them to pick somebody that, you know, there's no way deserves to be on that All Rockets roster. And that's on you, Ben. You know what you want to talk about. No, it was great. It was really interesting. People should go check out that show. And, Ben had some interesting rules in effect that I think made it a little bit more fun for that. Anything you want to promote on Rockets Chop Shop you got coming up?
Nah, man, I'm not gonna lie. I'm enjoying my off season for the Rockets. I'm just watching sports and enjoying it. Once the training camp starts coming around, we'll kick it back up. And get back to all the stuff that we do. But now I'm just enjoying the off season right now.
Yeah, I took a little break, but I'm gonna have another Rockets guest coming up. So everybody, hold on for that. It should be within the next week or so. So keep an eye out, and I just can't wait for the season. Looking forward to it, and always fun to talk, man.
Yes, sir.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.